Good morning. And welcome.
Hello and welcome. I liked how you said good morning then. Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly study group that we're going to do where we're going to figure out the difficult technical document together as well as have a relaxed chat. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
This week we're going to look at, because we've done a bit of how-tos, we did a bit of a free swim last week, and this week Ivanka sent me this thing. It was like, right, I'm trying to read this, and it's called the Silver Gun Hypothesis, which is an economic theory that takes in some sort of like scientific concepts and is around sort of like climate change and carbon use, carbon costs, that kind of thing. I would struggle to summarise it due to the fact that I've been trying to read it. I don't quite understand it, so we're going to read through it together. You've had a look at it, right?
I have had a look at it.
What's your feeling? What do you reckon it means?
I don't know. That's like so.
Well, how did you come across it?
I came across it. Somebody who is very active in the Extinction Rebellion. I had a coffee with her, and she said, "I keep getting sent all these things, and I don't know if I don't have time. I don't have the brain space or the time to understand if they are bullshit or not." Was the
right.
premise. And then I said to her, "Oh, so." Then she just sent me the link. So then I tried to read it. Then I was like, I don't know, because I think it suffers from that thing where it has a lot of technical language, which you don't know if that's if that's an Emperor's New Clothes type disguising something that's fundamentally vacuous but has lots of technical language, or is it clever? And in the same conversation with her, I was like, but have you read the Donut Economics book? And she's like, oh no, people keep going on about that. And I was like, you don't need to read it, just watch the video. She's like, I haven't got time. So anyway, so I think there is a bit of so fundamentally I've understood it to be in the same way that the Donut Economics model is that simply doing carbon offset or carbon taxes hasn't and doesn't do enough to curb carbon usage and to help stop raging climate change. So that's the starting point. Both of these things, like, right, we've got to do something more and something positive action forward. The threat of taxation hasn't done enough, and probably never would, because it doesn't. Because you can offset costs, get offset differently. And the other concept that both the models bring in is this idea that nature in of itself has some value to us.
Right. Yeah.
I think so. That's how. So like in that talk with the wizards versus prophets talk. Do you remember that one where there is like the whole technology will save us versus knitting our own socks will save us, she says disparagingly. But the wizard's solution, where we all live elevated above a poisoned planet, devalues nature and the value that it gives in our lives. So, and I think both the Kate Raworth Donut Economics model and this thing place the health of the planet more centrally into the maths.
Yeah, and they sort of quantify that, don't they?
Yeah.
I think, and like put that into the equation, whereas traditionally we're sort of not necessarily doing that. Yeah, well, we don't need to explain it all right now. It's just the intro still. So
that was the intro, people.
That was the intro. It's there's entropy. There's I found some diagrams.
There's lots of words.
They've used a picture of a gun.
Big words.
That's a thing. But yeah, I think there's as we have, one of the issues with climate change being not well understood is just sort of it's often in the hands of academics they sort of publish papers that the rest of us just can't understand. So actually the volume of kind of good understanding, clearly explained climate science is not that accessible. It's quite hard to find. Yeah. So if we can sort of help untangle some of that,
Yeah.
make it a bit more straightforward, which I think is a strength we both have, then maybe that's going to be useful.
Yeah.
But yes, let's play the music and then ask about each other.
Beautiful, Michael. Beautiful.
Thank you. How's it going?
It's okay.
We've had the real answer before the podcast.
How's it going? I think I'm coming down with something. I don't feel very well. I've got that feeling of like a hot head and a sore throat, but I'm not actually ill. I just feel like something's attacking me, and I'm fighting back with my ninja skills and ginger tea.
Ginger tea.
I was going to make myself another coffee, but then I walked downstairs and the timer's gone off on the coffee machine already. I was like, I'm not waiting for it to warm up again. I don't have time. There is no time.
There is little... What time is an illusion, though? Did you know that?
I do.
Time is an artificial construct that doesn't mean anything. I've got a grand podcast mug.
I haven't.
And I don't think I needed to leave this middle bit blank.
No.
I just got confused by the template. But the first draft of it, it's actually come out really well. Although they sent me 2 mugs. I did this design for the mugs. I ordered 2. And the first one, and then I got it, and I opened one, and it was a rainbow, and it said "Pan and Perfect." And I was like, this doesn't seem like the mug I designed. And I opened the other one, and it had, the design I did. I did look into it, and Pan and Perfect is a pansexual pride thing. So now I've got a nice pansexual pride mug at home.
Oh, very good.
As not necessarily a practicing pansexual, but perhaps certainly excited that they exist. I don't know. I've been watching RuPaul's Drag Race this week as well, so that's been flipping heck. Because I heard on The Guilty Feminist it had a bit of that Queer Eye juice, a bit of that. You're going to be like, what? And then you're going to be like, ah! And I did properly cry.
Really?
The first episode I saw. Just this poor guy. He was just like living it large, bitches. And then all of us, then all sort of dragged up, and then he's sort of like, so, what's your life been like? Well, I just got out of prison, and it's like, I sort of imagine the police kind of like being mean to him and just going, why can't we just all get along? Anyway, that was a digression. But back to the mugs. So I quite like how the designs come out, but unfortunately this one, you sort of have to drink out Donald Trump's face. It's like you sort of have to kiss him a little bit every time you take a sip of coffee. So I'm going to be leaving. But one of the reasons I got these was because I'm moving out of this studio, which is occasionally visited by influential people, I think, some pop stars and the like. So I wanted to make sure there was a couple of our mugs in the kitchen cupboard so that once I leave, I will still remain. But they can have the Trump kissing ones. I'll get us some better ones. And hopefully, I quite like this because they come out like a £5, £6 kind of thing. So merch, I may put a merch link down. If you want one of these mugs, get some merch because it's nice. Anyway,
Was it better than the bags?
Yeah, well, the bags came out, we did do these tote bags, but it was all a bit too small and the print didn't really come out, and I haven't really figured out how to improve the design. I think the bags probably just need to be grand podcast.
Yeah.
This is a podcast. Very big, because whereas I think the mug, if you just sort of find yourself with one, you'll sort of see. You'll be drinking out of it, it's just be a mug, but the URL is on the side that you drink from, so you might kind of be like, grandpodcast.com.
If you're right-handed.
Yeah, obviously we hate left-handed people, so... it still has Grand Podcast on the other side, just not the URL. Anyway, that's the mug. I've been thinking about ego challenges. Yeah, last week we were talking about, ego and stuff.
Yeah, ego and stuff.
I'm worried that you think I am threatened when you get on my turf and do something creative that is successful. And I am also worried that I think that as well. But I do. It is like I spend all my time trying to kind of make something that people care about, and then you just type up some shit that just comes to mind, and suddenly thousands of people care. I'm like, why? It's not fair. I worked really hard.
That's illustrating that you haven't quite embraced this whole ego thing.
Exactly. and I have started to I'm starting to become more mindful of when that my ego attack defense thing, and it's like this kind of like clenching of this muscle in my sort of core. It's like this, but I think it's a protective thing. I think it's like it's an echo of a younger time where maybe I felt like my intelligence was all I had, kind of thing. The only thing, and that had to be protected at all costs, because otherwise there would be nothing, I would have no value whatsoever. But now I'm like, I need to just be like, I have value beyond that, and it's fine to be wrong or someone to think I'm wrong, even for a moment. That's okay. So I'm trying to do that. And the other test I kind of had this week, I realised that I could practice to kind of exercise that muscle, is just listening to music.
Oh.
Because music listening to me has become quite I don't listen to music while I work because it distracts me, and sort of I get angry. If it's mediocre or boring, I'm like, why is music so boring? Why doesn't anyone want to hear anything I make? Or like I hear it and it's doing something that I wouldn't have thought of. I like that, but then that's distracting because it kind of sets this other thing off. But it is all very much, I'm immediately comparing myself to my work to anything I hear, and that's just like, it means that I can't. But I thought, like, maybe if I put some music on and just kind of like do that mindful inspection of it instead of just identifying with the emotion, just kind of observing the emotion instead. But anyway, so I'm having a go at the old ego thing, so I think partly inspired by reactions to some of your successes, because I want to get into that.
Enormous success.
Yeah, it was good.
It was
and
good.
I just want to get some equanimity going in my life because it looks good. I like it.
I did my Sussex Uni teaching yesterday, which I quite enjoyed. I do enjoy. I was a bit sort of like, oh, why have I agreed to do this again? Because it's going to take, it's going to stops me getting paid for a whole day on another day of the week, and then, but it is nice going. I mean, they're so. I gave them a choice of briefs this year, and one of them was the done good, because I'm only doing a project with them. There is no pretense that I'm an academic. There's no pretense that I am going to teach them the theory of something. It is purely a lab-based activity, and so I got them all looking up all the different apps. So I've now got added this all the different. They went for the do goody one. I may have manipulated that result by going, you could do this really boring brief, or you could do this really interesting brief. It's like, I'm going to be clear that this is the one I think is more interesting, but you can do the other one if you want. Anyway,
Ivanka, is this all above board? Is this some sort of child? Like, how old are these people? Is this exploitative? Are we getting away with something here?
I don't think so. They can write their own brief. They don't. I mean, anyway, it's just about. I was like, you need to. You have to make a thing. That is the bottom line of this 12-week project. So whatever happens on the last day, I want to see a thing, and you can choose like what your definition of done good is, what kind of encouragement system you want to create. Is it about me being good to myself? Like that. So they did, but they already were using, quite a few of them, this thing called Forest app, which if you tell your phone that you wish to not use your phone for 20 minutes, but instead of it just being a timer, it grows a virtual tree and then you earn points. So you can do it up to 2 hours, I think.
Sorry, I looked at my phone.
Yeah, it totally messes your brain.
I picked up my phone and it was like, data, what's happening? Because I just Googled that Forest app. Stay focused, be present. The irony. Actually, I'm going to put this on Do Not Disturb as well. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, like the tree growing metaphor, the tree growing kind of graphic thing was something that I had in a different design of Done Good, actually. So I quite like it because it's a bit of a softer kind of presentation. But I also like the sports, like competitive thing as well.
They had that one of the nice little features that I was telling my sister about is that you can set up a room. So let's say you're going for a family lunch. You can set up a room on your phones and set a timer, and as you're not your room grows trees, but if any one person picks up their phone, all the trees die.
Oh God, it's harsh.
So
it doesn't just like slowly wither. It's just like, sorry, apocalypse.
The forest is dead now because somebody at the family lunch decided. I think we could. Because actually...
seems a bit extreme, because then you're just going to be like, for fuck's sake!
Who touched their phone? Well, it'll start some family fights, perhaps.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've... and ultimately, if you collect enough points, you do get to actually plant actual real trees. I'm trying to use it a bit to work out how much not using my phone I have to do in order to plant a tree. But then I went to the pub last night we often go with friends who have a child the same age as us, and so it's a Thursday evening activity. But I left my phone at home and left it on the Foresty app because I thought actually I don't need my phone, so that was quite nice to not even feel like I had to check if anyone else had liked my Twitter thread. Which, by the way, is slowed down enormously.
Well, it will. It's done now. You get a spike and then it goes.
It's over. But it did get up to 15,000. So
that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Just saying.
I put my new video up, guys, people. It's about how to make projections using an iPhone from your Eurorack modular synth. So if you like that sort of thing, then you can go and watch that. I think it's a good video. But
I like your makey
niche.
Things video.
It's pretty hashtag niche.
It is.
There's the guy who I'm moving into a studio with, another Michael.
Useful.
It's just going to be all white men called Michael. That's our diversity. But he does making things and electronics and a bit of programming. So we're gonna. I've already seen some ideas and some. You can like get laser cutted wood things and boxes and all that. It's quite easy apparently. So I'm quite looking forward to doing some of that. But everybody, go and look at my video. It's only got 500 views on YouTube, but that's all right.
That's quite good.
Do you know I've got like nearly over 1,300 YouTube subscribers now?
Wow.
The guy who recommended me on YouTube, Martin Keary, he told me that like the first 1,000 is the hardest, and then after that it gets a lot easier. I think the social proof emerges, which it reminds me for our Patreon. I sorted out my Patreon last week as well, so if you want to support that, but I still haven't sent out the begging emails to friends and family saying, can you just do a token thing, support, even if it doesn't last for very long, just to give the social proof so that other people see it and go, oh, this seems to be something, and they kind of pledge, because apparently people just can't make their own decisions. So we've got to do that for our own Patreon. When we get this Grand Podcast Patreon up and running, we should do it for this podcast, because I don't think we want to put ads on it. We want to put some Patreon support, really. Don't you want to help us? Because we're about to really add some value as we bang our heads against something horribly complicated.
Yes.
Although I do still have quite a lot in my list of things I wanted to bring up. Can I bring up one more thing?
One more thing.
Before because I'm not. It's not to say that we're procrastinating about this silver gun hypothesis discussion, but I'm a bit worried about talking about it, but it's fine. But the last thing was, but my blank state video, I have not been able to get Facebook to let me pay to promote it, because Well, the first thing was like, it sort of got rejected on the grounds that it looked political. It was like, this is a political thingy project. And they sort of made me jump through some identity verification hoops and all this stuff to kind of prove who I am. And then it would say, this video was paid for by blah, 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 blah. So I kind of went through all that, got all that working, resubmitted it. And then they came back and went, oh, no, this isn't a political thing. You don't need to do that. And I was like, so then I submitted it again. And then it was like, oh, this is a Bitcoin, a blockchain, cryptocurrency related thing. We can't be advertising that sort of thing because it's promoting a Bitcoin currency service. I'm like, it's not at all. And at that point, I was like, well, whatever. Maybe I'll get more juice out of telling the press that Facebook won't let me advertise this thing because Facebook's stupid than I will out of actually promoting it myself. But again, I still haven't sent any emails to anyone in press. So
there is lots to despair of, I think, at the moment, which is I am on the old Twitters. So in two separate places. It's sort of related, but this sort of anti-choice gang.
Yeah.
I seem to have picked up a new theme, which has come to my attention on both Twitter and Facebook, which is this idea their battleground is third trimester abortions, which is not a thing.
Yeah.
In your third
but even though Trump said it in his thing, didn't he? Moments from birth. Abortions moments before birth. No one's doing that.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody is doing that. That is not happening. So I saw on Facebook somebody had shared, another one of my Croatian Catholic jihadi gang had got a video that was recorded in Ireland somewhere of a group of maybe 8 heavily pregnant women on a stage with those baby heartbeat monitors held to their stomach with a megaphone attached in a whole, this is the babies talking for themselves. I was like, A, those are healthy babies that have a heartbeat. B, those mums look very happy and healthy. Like, this is not what, how dare you? And then some other woman, so then this is not something this came to me rather than me. I don't seek out arguments about anti-choice or pro-choice. They sometimes find me, I suppose, because I'm a woman, and so the algorithm says, hey, you're a woman, you might be interested in this. And then on Twitter, Hillary Clinton shared this statistic that women in America, there is now an increase in women dying in childbirth and pregnancy-related complications, things that are not being dealt with properly. Now, I argue there is probably, and that's in a progressive country, in one of the most successful economies in the world, women are dying of preventable things that are to do with basic healthcare. And so, and again, this is something that the pro-life gang, the anti-choice gang pile on. And somebody said, when has having an abortion ever saved someone's life? So somebody comes on and goes, preeclampsia, blah, 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 lists a bunch of complications. And another woman comes on and goes, I had preeclampsia and my son is 40 now. And I was like, so I chipped in. I was like, please understand that you were fortunate. I also had preeclampsia, which is a life-threatening condition that you can develop in pregnancy. But I was 38 weeks pregnant, so they could, the baby could come out and the baby was very viable and was able to survive. So I just put, please understand that you were fortunate. I also had preeclampsia at 38 weeks and also was able to have a healthy baby. And then somebody else went, oh, these third trimester abortions. I was like, what? So I actually went, hang on a minute. Who said anything about... She said, I just feel so passionately about it. I was like, no, you're shit stirring on the internet is what you're doing. You're trying to make an argument not about... because I know people that had preeclampsia at 20 weeks and that's it. Game over. You either have to stop being pregnant, and in which case the baby cannot survive outside of the womb, or you die.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
I'm gonna put a preeclampsia Wikipedia link in the show notes because I need to just
work out what it is.
Look it up. Donald Trump. I said to you yesterday, like I do think this I like how the sort of triggered snowflake thing has been turned on the right wing lot, up to the point that Donald Trump is now complaining about presidential harassment.
Fuck off.
That's his new term. He's calling it presidential harassment. And what a poor snowflake. What a poor guy. He's being harassed. Most powerful office in the world is being harassed. Poor guy.
People are
we all feel sorry
picking on
for you.
me. My favourite word that I learned when we were learning Spanish was pobrecito, which is like, oh, your poor little thing. I was like, so if Nick whinges now, I still go, oh, pobrecito. It just sounds so patronising. It's perfect.
Trump. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready for some
No.
motherfucking silver gun hypothesis? We're going to make this exciting. It's about economics. Physics. The environment. Finance. Growth. Consumerism. Sustainability.
Like, you are on a totally different energy level to me today.
It's the silver gun hypothesis, Ivanka. Not silver bullet, because there's no silver bullets. But silver guns.
gun.
That might work. Should we just...
I think I've exhausted everything I know in the intro.
Well, I think we're just going to read through it. So have you got the page up?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to... So that MAHB
yeah, that one.
page.
Yeah.
Should we just read it out? Introduction. Many people are hoping that civilization will undergo an economic transformation for the objective of becoming sustainable over the long run. It seems reasonable to assume that a transformational change, if it does occur, will be accompanied by a paradigm shift in economic philosophy. A paradigm shift seems reasonable in the face of the environmental and moral failings of consumerism, unregulated
When you say,
growth.
shall we just read it out? Like, well, if you can.
It's like, fuck. You know what I mean? But some of these words are quite long. Plus, they're spelt American with Zs instead of S's. So, I mean, I can't really be held accountable for mispronouncing financialization. Global capitalism, shortcomings. They have shortcomings. Moral, environmental and moral shortcomings. This current system, can we all agree that there are some shortcomings?
I think we can agree there are shortcomings.
I don't know that everyone agrees with that.
Well, I think...
Margaret Thatcher thinks that poverty is a personality defect.
Luckily, she's dead, though. So,
Oh.
fuck her.
Fuck her is right.
So can we all agree? I think that is fundamentally the problem, that we can't all agree that there are... Well, this is the problem with any sort of do-gooding activity. It's like those anti-choicers, they think they're doing good. So shortcomings, I'm writing. Consumer... I mean, I think... Yeah, I don't think we do. I think you and I agree.
Yeah, but like, how are we going to get everyone to agree to a paradigm shift? Well, it needs to be the sort of paradigm shift that they can see what's in it for them, I guess.
I have thought about this, obviously, a little bit. Sorry, this should come as no surprise that I have thought about this. This consumerism business, and I find myself, sort of the behaviours by which I now live, in my family, or me as a person, I had a big embracing of consumerism in my mid-20s to my early 30s, basically, because I was earning money and I could go shopping and I could buy clothes.
Recovering in consumerist.
Well, yeah, so it's like, so I had this phase, but then now the way I'm behaving, like fixing... You know, like I went through a clothes buying phase massively, but the way I live now, I just feel like I'm living how I used to live when I was a child, which is, you know, turn the heating down, put a jumper on, switch the lights off. Do we really need a new one of those? Do you though? What do you need that for? What should we do? Look after. My dad used to bang on about looking after your things. Look after your things, because we can't just keep buying new ones and replacing them. Like, I feel like I'm channeling my dad most of the time when I'm walking around the house going, we don't need one of those. No, should we buy a new fridge? We can just buy a new door seal, blah, blah, which has happened recently to us. And it's like, so this kind of idea of paradigm shift, what I'm trying to say, I think, is that I don't think this rampant consumerism has actually been there for that long. Because we haven't had that economic ability. We haven't had cheap plastic shit that's produced all over. Like, cheap stuff hasn't existed for that long.
Yeah.
So
we watched that thing on Netflix. What's the thing with the money? What was that show called? I mean, the long and short of it was these people had money. Like, one of them was like a porn star type person who kind of was seen with Charlie Sheen at the peak of his, antics, and he'd sort of given her all these wads of cash and like a ball of cocaine as just as a tip and like things like that. And she's talking about that money, you have all this money, you suddenly go from dirt poor to living in some penthouse opposite some landmark, and of course. And this other guy, it was this guy that was talking about money and how he just had all this money and it was ridiculous. And I loved it. Just using money left and right and just kind of like, and now he's having to hide in Germany because the US don't have an extradition treaty, because he's sort of done some very dodgy stuff in the course of his life. But of course, the moral of this all comes down to that, like, these people that have tasted rampant consumerism have come to the conclusion that it's bullshit, and that it's not giving them anything. But we all go through that. I went through that phase as well, right? Like, I remember, like, you get the job and suddenly it's like, because I came up not being able to have anything very much
totally.
what I wanted, and suddenly I can have anything I want.
Yeah, completely. And suddenly, like, these things that were like, I would just, I remember being really jealous of all the girls that had loads of clothes and all that kind of thing, and just being able to walk into a shop and go, I'm just even not going to look at how much it costs, because I'm just going to have it. And, I think that's a perfectly natural phase. I think it's perfectly normal. I don't think, I don't berate myself for it. I understand it. But I think that what we're like fundamental to surviving or even vaguely slowing down the climate collapse is going to have to be an acceptance of a enormous change in lifestyle for everyone.
Limitations.
And it's really, that is going to, for many people, be like a bereavement.
Yeah, but that's what I think. It has to be accompanied by everybody being able to, I think, get good quality stuff.
Yeah.
That they don't have, that doesn't just disintegrate as soon as they've used it for 6 months. Like that poverty thing of your poverty being sustained by the fact that you keep having to buy low quality stuff. I think that sort of universal basic income promise, the idea, I was walking through like Westbourne Grove, which has all these sort of boutique shops, and just thinking, I kind of think all shops should be like this, where someone that really cares about making that sort of thing should be able to have the privilege to be able to kind of like, make a really good one of it. And that everyone should be able to kind of just, all the products we have are just really good versions that someone really cares about. Instead of this sort of race to the bottom, what's the cheapest we can make it? What's the most we can like kind of exploit things to make something? And then if everyone sort of had stuff that was a decent quality, then there wouldn't be quite such a kind of turnover and kind of having to accept that. But obviously that doesn't necessarily work for fashion and things like that. So. Well,
fashion's got a lot to there is a lot to answer for in terms
of encoding of disposability of
totally.
Like just throwing stuff away, making stuff planned obsolescence, like
and this that sort of a top appears in Grazia magazine and it's sold out internationally within like 48 hours or something, all that kind of shit. But I think that what fundamental to, so I'm slightly worried we're going up. We've only read one sentence.
To be honest, I think that's fine. I think like if it takes us 6 weeks to get through this
that's
thing,
fine then.
I think that's fine.
Because I think like fundamental to this, a lot of the carbon that is being put in the air is being done so by people who have money, the people that can afford to fly around in private jets, blah, blah, blah. So there's a disproportionate carbon footprint for people that have great wealth versus the rest of us. So, however, we have numbers. So if we all adjusted our behaviour and chipped in and, found our Dunkirk spirit and changed our behaviour, we could make a difference. However, whilst there is gross inequality, there will always be that feeling that you and I have experienced, which is now I've got myself out of poverty. I want to go through the mad consumer phase where I can walk into any shop and buy some new shoes and not care and buy a second pair of shoes because I want to, not because I need to.
£270 for a pair of shoes? I'm going to do it. I can do it
because I've just got a pay rise and I can afford it and I'm going to do it.
It's probably hardly anything in women's shoes, is it? It's like that's the most I've spent on shoes. I'm sorry.
Well,
I didn't even like. They weren't even that good. They weren't even that comfortable. And they were really ploppy, embarrassing.
The shoes that I've got I've got a pair of boots that are. I'm very proud to say that they are over 10 years old and I still wear them and people still say, those are very nice boots. I need to get them fixed. There's they need sewing. But
they are repairable.
They are repairable. But they were basically, they would have been £500, except I was doing a project for Selfridges and they gave me a 50% off voucher. So that brought it down to £250. And then because I'd done some other project at LBI, one of the client partners gave me £100 of Selfridges vouchers.
Really?
So, I got a little thank you so much for all your hard work.
I didn't know you did a Selfridges project.
It was so secret. Like it was really NDA'd to the hilt. That was the user research session where, because it was all obviously very, very high end clothes, and this woman who was a participant, she said, well, when you're looking at a £2,500 dress, not you obviously. I was like, fuck you, lady. But I was like, it was quite funny because after the session, because obviously the client and the other people on the team were behind the glass, and at the end of when she'd gone, everyone was like, not you with your shit clothes.
Well, they believe it though. They don't know. They're gross. I saw this. I took a bit last time. I walked through Selfridges, almost sleepwalking. I can't remember. I've probably said this, but that £6,000 sequin covered non-functional handbag. It's like, come on, guys. Like, at a certain point, you've got to ask yourself, maybe there's something else to life. Maybe there's more to life than how much is it possible to spend on something.
Yeah.
And not everything has to be functional. Not everything has to be for a reason. And I was always told growing up, like, there's, like, more expensive doesn't necessarily mean better. And obviously there is some of that. But that also, like, super cheap does kind of mean crap. So it doesn't. I mean, like all this money stuff, it's not necessarily symmetrical. A lack of money does make you unhappy, but money doesn't then make you happy.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, if we could create a world where everybody had that 50 grand number, the happiness tipping point number, that's what we really want. Everybody has enough money to not have to think when their trainers run out and they need a new pair of trainers, and not have to save up for the simple things in life, not have to get a food bag, never mind the lower, but I think the great thing about my boots, one of the things I love most about them, is that they are that Burberry. They're Burberry boots, but it's really, really hard to work out where it says Burberry on them. It's so subtle. They're just black leather boots, but it's so subtle. I love it. So that's my favourite. So I thoroughly enjoyed that period of my life where I could do things like that.
That is one thing that those paying a bit more money does get you is that the logo doesn't take up the entire object. You don't turn into a billboard for a product if you just pay an extra £100.
So there's something about like agreeing that consumerism is morally and environmentally
I don't know how
wrong.
we're gonna.
I really don't know how we get. You
can't really be told. No. You have to kind of like experience it. And then even then, like, you sort of probably have to hit some sort of wall or crash before you'll be like, you have to have a crisis to realise that consumerism isn't necessarily the answer.
Yeah. Or you do. I mean, or just a life circle, like a realisation. I mean, I think I was quite lucky. I don't think I had a crisis. I just sort of grew out of it. It became, I felt more stable maybe in my new life where I could afford things. I don't know, because
my kind of reduction has come from just like I want more freedom than I want things.
Yes, yeah. I think that's I mean, it did us the world. That motorcycle trip, where I had, literally the clothes I was wearing and a change of clothes for a year. It's like, and we had an amazing. That did a lot for me. And I wanted to hold on to that freedom as well of not having all this stuff to cart around.
The way I got to sort of reduce my kind of number of possessions did involve a painful amount of landfilling shit, which is like one of the reasons you hold on to like a lot of junk is because you're like, yeah, but then if I throw it out, I'm admitting to just contributing to the problem. Yeah. But it's the only way to get rid of it.
But yeah, so this agreeing that consumerism it's the morally wrong, but has moral shortcomings. I mean, the moral shortcomings are in there's been stories now, I'm not finishing sentences, sorry. There's been stories recently, like how one of the side effects of Brexit and our inability to buy will affect the livelihoods of people in some countries that are already not getting paid enough. They're going to get paid even less. So I think the moral shortcomings often come through that full supply chain of how many people have suffered. Yes, Sports Direct has cheap gear for sports day, but not only has the supply chain suffered, but the staff in the UK are on terrible contracts. Yeah. So, it's those are the moral shortcomings. But people don't. Whenever I talk about this, I think there's a couple of people in my life who are, I think raging, rampant consumers at the low end. They've not got loads of money, but they've got enough money to buy loads and loads and loads of cheap things. And so, how to broach that conversation with them to say, yeah, I know, but do you understand like how many people have suffered for you to buy that? Like, I don't know how to do that without sounding like a.
Yeah, I don't know how someone realises without experiencing it. Maybe it's a virtual reality thing.
Maybe. Yeah, we can make a virtual reality game where you have to go and work in a clothes factory and.
Yeah, but people don't do things for the reason they shouldn't. They do things for the reasons that they want to. It's like smoking or anything like that. Like no amount of talking about lung cancer is going to dilute the underlying belief that it's relieving stress or kind of making you look cool or whatever.
But smoking is a brilliant example of a massive behaviour change that's worldwide.
And, addiction and as a way of thinking about this stuff that is just, I think,
It's because it has gone from, in not many years, when was the smoking ban here?
1997 maybe.
Yeah, so like 10, 15. So over the course of 10, 15 years, smoking has gone from being completely normal, socially acceptable, to make everybody stink, to make provision for that, for like, smoking on airplanes and trains and God knows what, to it being like the people who still smoke now kind of hide it.
Yeah,
and it is not social, and it's a bit like, oh, really? I'm sorry that you still smoke, and I know lots
Yeah.
of people. I know lots of people that still smoke, and I still love them. But it's that sort of. It has become generally so. Whilst it's still, do you remember those videos of Venice underwater in those floods recently? And there was all these people walking with like Louis Vuitton bags, shopping bags, holding them above their heads and walking through, like wading through a sinking, flooded Venice. And you're like,
Right.
you see what you're
Got your
doing there?
priorities wrong.
That is wrong. What you're doing there.
It's a good image, isn't it?
It's beautiful. And it's
So,
like,
so a paradigm shift seems reasonable in the face of environmental and moral. So what the problem with that is, we have got people hardcore addicted to consumerism,
Absolutely.
unregulated growth,
yeah.
right? I don't know if you could use quite the same terms for financialization or global capitalism, because they're both a bit more kind of, quite know what that means, but certainly you've got to kind of cure people of their consumerism addictions and growth addictions, which, so that's challenge one. That's probably why this thing's so hard to read, because each sentence is like, right. Ooh, Delton B. Chen just got back to me,
Oh,
the
did he?
writer of the article we're reading.
What did he say?
He says, I would really like to talk to you. I'm in a cinema right now, but how about we schedule a conversation? I'm in Brisbane time zone, and part 2 of the series will be presented in March. I will email you soon. Best, Delton.
Wow.
Hey.
Look at you reaching out to strangers on the internet and looking
Yeah.
for synergies.
Synergies. Because the next sentence is, what is needed is a more complete vision for human prosperity, whereby humanity acts as a protector of the planetary ecosystem in a new symbiotic relationship.
I think this is the core, this idea that we can exist happily and healthily on a planet that isn't its full glorious ecosystem is...
Yeah, so it comes back to, like, you think about consumerism and unregulated growth. Trees don't just keep growing indefinitely.
No.
They reach maturity and then they enter into a sort of symbiotic relationship with their environment. We've become addicted as conquerors of geographic space, and then attention, technologically farming attention. We've become completely addicted to growing indefinitely. So you can imagine if a person just kept growing and growing and growing and growing, and we're all like competing to be like who's 90 feet tall, and then some of us would still be like 5 foot, and it's like, what? How does that work? And you just like put that lens on it. It's so absurd. And then you see that all the processes that are involved in a self-sustaining ecosystem, and look at how that stuff goes round and round. The carbon comes in, oxygen comes out, goes into a cycle, and things sort of like hang together. But because we're addicted to this growth thing, it's just, I am Douglas Rushkoff. Our last best hope for peeps. I always think he mumbles that. That pun. Anyway.
On the subject of unlimited growth, my daughter has some wise words on this subject, because I always go, right, you have to go to bed now because that's when you grow, when you're asleep. That's when your brain grows. That's when you grow. Okay, I do want to grow, but I don't want to grow. She said, I don't want to be a giant, because then people will be afraid of me.
Exactly.
So,
and that's what happens, isn't it?
That's what happens if you keep growing indefinitely. You become a
bloody
giant, and people
that no one
become afraid
likes.
of you.
They try and like stab your little ankles and stuff. Whereas if you just stayed the same size as us, then we'd try and be friends with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we try and get to paragraph 2 of this blog post?
I would say that one of the main things you're making me think about is how important that sort of getting involved in things like that Think Nation poverty project and stuff like that. It's just so hard why should somebody who's already not got enough take responsibility for this shitstorm that's coming?
Oh yeah. That one of the replies to that tweet that you shared the other day from the EU person. What was that tweet? Someone was like, "What sort of person would do this without having any kind of plan?" And then someone was like, "Well, the same sort of person that would make the poorest people in society pay for the financial crisis to bail out the banks," kind of thing.
The same sort of people that but the poorest people are already paying for the climate breakdown. Like they're already people. Anyway, there's also
they're the last ones that can afford stilts, houses on stilts. Brighton's going to be full of
canoes to go to school in.
Yeah, they can't afford canoes. But I don't want to be glib about poverty, but
I want to be glib about the climate breakdown.
I want to be glib about the climate breakdown. That's what you said.
No, I said I don't want to be glib. I can't. It's like I try. It's like really dark gallows humour.
Well, exactly. It's like we're just like I just finished that David Simon book, Homicide, and all the sort of gallows humour of the homicide detectives, the jokes they make. Paragraph 2. So my new mate, Delton Chen, says, "Our desire for sustainability is encoded into the names of two emerging schools of economic thought, ecological economics and biophysical economics. But what precisely is the philosophy that can resolve the climate crisis and other man-made calamities? Here I offer, for your consideration, a possible solution to this difficult question. The solution is a new economic hypothesis for long-run sustainability that is framed on the entropy and mass of carbon in the environment. The solution is called the silver gun hypothesis."
So right, okay, now, Mr. Physics, what we need is for you to say, so all of this sounds lovely until it says it's framed on the entropy and mass of carbon in the environment.
Okay.
What?
So the mass is there's a certain amount. The entropy is where you kind of like lose it over time because it just kind of like dissolves into chaos. So there's sort of like amount of useful mass of carbon kind of over time will just kind of like... So entropy is just the increase of disorder in a system. So like the universe is expanding and will eventually be... I don't need to talk about that now, but it's just like you stir... It's the simplest way to think about it is you pour some milk into your coffee and stir it. There's no way to ever get that milk back out in its original form. That's entropy. Its atoms are all like just intermingled with all the other atoms of the coffee, and that's it. And that is time moves. That's why we experience time moving forwards. It's basically what time is the entropy of the universe slowly increasing. And that's why it's work to keep things tidy.
I see.
Because a room will just naturally become more and more disorganised unless you sort of stay on top of it.
Right. Okay.
So if we sort of dig into the silver gun hypothesis is a synthesis of the following 4 concepts that are based on existing knowledge and experience in biology, thermodynamics, governance, and economics. I like when people synthesize concepts from different fields because it's something I like doing as well.
Well,
it's easier than thinking of original things.
Well, I think synthesizing is more realistic because
The trouble is those are quite disparate fields. Well, so let's find out.
See.
So
concept 1.
Concept 1. Do you want to read it?
Okay, yeah, I will. Concept 1. Carbon is the molecular building block of living systems and is a primary factor in climate change. For this and other reasons, the world economy should be restructured with a unit of account denominated in carbon mitigation services.
Just to add to that, carbon is also awesome. It's very cool what you can do with carbon. It can connect to all sorts of... This whole field of chemistry is organic chemistry. Is all different structures that carbon can take. All of our cells and molecules are all mostly carbon with a bit of hydrogen and oxygen, bits and pieces here and there. But carbon, because it's got these 4... I don't know if people know... Do people all kind of have this. Right, so carbon has 4 electrons, which means it can do all sorts of stuff. The other one that has 4 electrons is silicon. So you can sort of see, like, we can do loads with that. It's a very sort of powerful thing, which is why it's sort of in everything that we care about. So it's like oil is made from, petrochemicals, carbon molecules that were put together in the process of life, which is obviously quite an interesting thing in itself. And now we're sort of extracting all of that work that was done back then biologically. But yeah, carbon's just awesome. So I just wanted to add that.
That's great. Yay. Yay for carbon. So carbon
Yay.
is awesome. And for that reason, it should be turned into money. Is that what is this unit of account denominated in carbon mitigation services?
Yeah, so I think looking at, I saw another talk and tried to listen to the thing, but carbon mitigation services is a thing that we've got to get our head around what that means. So, but basically saying, okay, this is the gold standard, right?
Yeah.
Of our new thing that we're coming up with here.
Yeah.
Which I guess hopefully will be explained in concepts 2, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So what's 2?
The concept 2, the entropy of the universe is increasing as described by the second law of thermodynamics. For this and other reasons, the entropy of carbon in the environment should be factored into the assessment of climate policies and economic models.
So is that like if the gold standard also had to take into effect that some gold was sort of going missing all the time?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's kind of what that means. If gold sort of went off a little bit over time, just a little bit on the outside, was kind of just slowly sort of seeping away.
Rusting.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah. So carbon isn't this fixed quantity resource. It's a resource that, in terms of access to it, I've always had this kind of idea that the solution to a lot of climate problems would be just because carbon is so useful. If we could, I guess, unstir the coffee and get all of those atoms back out using sort of nanotech magic, that would be a thing.
I've definitely seen a video, and sometimes one doesn't know how made up these things. This is the problem with the internet. It's you see a video. Anyway, there's definitely some sort of factory, for lack of a better word, that was literally pulling carbon out of the air and turning it into a liquid fuel. So
that's just what trees do.
But but isn't that what you're saying? There's a way of isn't that unstirring the coffee? Because the carbon's there. So we took some oil out of the earth and we burnt it, and the carbon escaped into the air, and now it's mixed up, so it's kind of entropied. Don't know what the verb is here, and then it will. Then by having a magical air unstirrer, you can say, right, carbon to the left, oxygen to the right, okay, or whatever other bits there are in it.
So there's these carbon dioxide molecules that, in combination with sunlight and whatever the trees are getting out of the ground, is that unstirring the coffee? It's like these carbon dioxide molecules are just this sort of free floating source of air. So that's. I'm trying to think why I never sort of saw it in terms of should we just fly? If there was a way to fly trees up into the atmosphere to wherever it's the most problems with carbon, I still.
Oh, but I think one thing that was interesting. I will try and find this, but God knows when I saw it. But it was more that you don't need a carbon sink of whatever description, a factory like this, doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be where the problem is. So the Amazon rainforest helps all of us, even though it's not close to all of us. Taking carbon out of the atmosphere is a non-geospecific activity.
Yeah.
She says, trying to use a really clever word.
Good one.
But anyway, I think concept 2 says at the moment, we think about money like we attach money to the value of gold, in theory, and gold can never never disappear. It always is there in its solid form, and you can move it around. And whereas carbon, if we turned that into some sort of value-based system like gold, the problem is that it entropies in a way. So therefore, you'd have to factor in the fact that it would slowly disappear.
Kind of, yeah. So it's sort of like the opposite of, you can't really mint new currency or bitcoins in the same way.
No.
I guess with carbon, if it's a finite resource, I think that's what he means. But should we push on?
It's a finite resource that entropies, so it becomes less over time. No?
Yeah. I think that's the.
Okay.
I think that's the point of that.
Concept 3: risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. ISO 2009. And risk brackets and risk management practices should be used to manage the world economy for long-run sustainability.
So uncertainty, in a way, we could connect that to entropy, but also we can connect it to the general truth that we can't make any predictions about something.
But I think what makes the risk and uncertainty around climate breakdown, as identified in that paper from the woman from the Bank of England, it's that sort of that the uncertainty is more rampant because there's an acceptance that there are certain tipping point events possible. So it's not just like the melting of the polar ice caps and the sea wouldn't the white surface on the planet wouldn't exist. The sea would get warm. We don't know what affects that. There was I read another one. There's a few of these potential tipping points. So the uncertainty is quite dramatic in this, unlike other uncertainty measuring that, I don't know, actuaries do on behalf of insurance companies. The insurance companies are the ones that are really grappling with climate breakdown the most
right
at the moment.
Because they're used to measuring risk.
Yeah, that's
finding.
Yeah, they're just betting us all that, they're trying to freak us out that something bad's going to happen, betting us it will. We're going, no, it won't, and therefore, that's what.
Well, we're all kind of intrinsically refusing to take out insurance in a way, which is something I'd quite like to just talk for a little bit, because I'm not the most insurance-having person around. Like, a lot of my stuff isn't insured.
Yeah.
Because I sort of feel like it's better to look after it and just not
put it at risk.
Not put it at risk. Minimise risk, I feel, is a better strategy than kind of just quantifying it and paying an insurance premium, or it's just because it's just annoying to try and take out insurance, especially if you keep having to change the different things that you're insuring. But insurance is, what do you think? It's kind of a privilege if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of like buildings insurance in Croatia doesn't really exist like it does here. Because I was talking to some relatives, I was like, who live in Germany. I was like, is your house insured? Do you have a house in buildings insurance? She was like, no. She said, but there are starting to be firms that do it. So it's like, if your house burns down, that's sad. You better make a new one when you can.
Yeah. But it is one of those things that you do sort of have to make people... So car insurance as well. Like, you're not allowed to drive a car that's not insured. Like, it is one of those things that the sort of government has to set the rules and sort of force everyone to do. Because on one hand, everyone knows they kind of know they should.
Yeah.
I kind of know I should have more insurance than I've got. But at the same time, it's like, it's just this extra expense and admin that it's hard to find the motivation to do, because it's like, well, I can't see any threats immediately, so why would I take out insurance against them?
Well, I think that I think I've had conversations with banks when they phone you up and they go, oh, we're flogging some insurance, and I will say, look, I'm not really the betting type, I don't want all this insurance. Like it does, and there is a concept of self-insuring. Like if you are worried, because you can buy things like critical illness insurance. Like if you get diagnosed with a thing, then you get a load of money. There are other ways to prepare for that eventuality, like pet insurance, having a savings account for. Kind of understanding approximately what the risks are and therefore putting some money aside. I think with things like car driving, the problem is that you could hurt somebody else. It's more, I think, about injury of human than it is about injury to material stuff. Like if I accidentally hurt somebody, there's no way I could work for the rest of my life. I would not be able to afford to support them. So I think it's more like,
but certainly, sort of state mandated insurance exists for a reason.
Yes.
That kind of we don't always feel like doing it.
No.
We'll get round to it.
But this sort of the insurance world and how its view, I think the insurance world is far too quiet on the subject of climate breakdown, because there are now some houses, like there are some flood areas that like the insurance companies are refusing to do basement insurance in certain flooding areas prone to flooding, and it's like and actually because the insurance business is this sort of like understanding of risk, you have to be very clever to be an actuary and do all that all those sums. So they can't, they actually have probably quite a good idea of what the risks are, and I don't think they're vocal enough.
Concept 4.
Money is the primary tool.
To learn about money, refer to episodes.
Yeah, that was very ranty when we talked about money. Anyway, concept 4. Money is the primary tool for standardising value in the economy. And so new monetary systems, called service money, should be used to protect natural capital, finance socially and ecologically regenerative services, and fundamentally alter the context of value in economics.
So, new monetary system called service money. He uses the term natural capital, which we covered a little bit earlier, but natural capital being just what we've got in the environment, our ecosystem.
Yeah.
Socially and ecologically regenerative services.
I think that is quite critical, because at the moment, a lot of the models to hide the wealth disparity or to deal with it is to create gated communities and just basically sets of people living in the same city, the same planet, the same country, the same planet, are existing in parallel lives, not sharing services, not sharing lifestyles, not sharing anything. And I think that sort of the socially regenerative is as important as, because I don't think you can divorce the two. You can't say we're going to make things ecologically regenerative, ecologically sustainable, but not address massive disparity in society. I don't think,
Yeah, and then from another talk that he did, I found one with some slides. The context of value in economics. He talks about that there's this diagram. So looking at this general system theory, I think the old one is this neoclassical economy, socially framed, and biophysical economy. Music break. Biophysical economy, thermodynamically framed. So the idea that...
Is that the whole thing?
Yeah. No, that's one view of it. But just like that, currently the value is that red bit under the line, and he sort of wants to bring in that renewable economy service money with carbon as units of service money being this new above the line. This is where it just like confuses the heck out of me. But so you can spend this service money to protect the eco stuff and the social stuff. So you can spend the other kind of money still, but we've added this new kind of money that called service money that you're only allowed to spend on
but
regenerative
isn't
stuff.
It that you only earn it by doing regenerative stuff?
But it says that it can be used to protect natural capital, finance things, and to basically kind of provide a new context for what value means. But I still don't quite see what the idea is.
So, but he's talking
What does
about
this
you
look like
earn money. So in the next bit, he goes, at the heart of the silver gun hypothesis is a claim that carbon taxes and cap and trade schemes are insufficient for managing climate risk. Okay.
So, for a start,
Yeah.
carbon taxes, not even sure I've got a good internal understanding of that, and cap and trade schemes I need to Google. But the carbon taxes, we've all agreed that we're going to limit carbon emissions, and if we go over, we pay.
Yeah, there's a punitive. You get punished for bad behaviour. Whereas,
but who does the money go to, and what does it get spent on?
I don't know. I think it just goes into normal taxes, doesn't it?
Right. So
I think it's just a normal taxation system, but that has gets collected. I don't even know. And I'm not. I actually don't know if it's because he's building up to his next bit.
Well, but I don't want to just skim over it because I just want to just make sure we understand every last flipping term in this thing. But so carbon is on carbon pricing. Carbon tax offers social and blah, blah, blah. Carbon taxes. A number of countries have implemented carbon taxes that are related. Most, I don't know. But just to say, like, emissions trading or cap and trade is a market-based approach to controlling pollution by providing economic incentives for achieving reductions in the emissions of pollutants. So it's kind of like, I don't know what the cap means. So it says like you can only, it's kind of what I thought the tax meant, isn't it? Like you're only allowed to do this many emissions and you can trade.
In the early noughties, there was a lot of, do you want to offset the carbon emission of your flight by planting a tree? Do you want to, that kind of, I think the cap and trade schemes are that, but at an industrial scale.
This and the next paragraph explains it on Wikipedia, actually. A central authority allocates or sells a limited number of permits to discharge specific quantities of a specific pollutant per time period. Polluters are required to hold permits in amount equal to their emissions. Polluters that want to increase their emissions must buy permits from others willing to sell them.
Right.
So it's kind of like you got to trade, and there's a fixed number of these things, and if you want to emit more than you're allowed, then you've got to have a thing, and
you've got to use up someone else's. I mean, you could set up a thing where, for example, for every flight, like let's say I haven't flown for a year, somebody who needs to take a flight could team up with me and say, look, I need to fly somewhere, can I have your flight allowance?
Yeah, and that's cap and trade.
Yeah.
So the trade bit. But so we think that's not enough.
Yeah, that's what.
And the silver gun hypothesis is a claim that a global carbon reward can improve social cooperation, incentivize mitigation actions, and limit the risk of dangerous to catastrophic climate change. So it's like you don't just have to. You're getting paid.
Yeah, to do good things.
For doing good things.
Yeah. Which
in a currency that can be spent on good things.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think. I don't know about that second part of the sentence, but that there's a way to earn this new money. So, like, you have to be playing in this game to earn this new money. Basically.
Yeah, obviously money doesn't mean anything unless you can spend it. So, but it is a positive economy then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can only spend it on good stuff.
Yeah, so it's like... yeah, but I mean, if it was like, I don't know, Pogs or something.
But who's got it? So we've minted this currency based on how much carbon there is, and there's now anyone's. I don't know how we give it out initially.
Well, I don't. That's the bit maybe that I'm not clear, because in the way I've pictured it now in my head, is let's say I'm the owner of the magical factory that takes carbon out of the air and turns it into liquid fuel. So I'm not simply taking the carbon out. I'm doing something a bit more with it. I'm, making no emission cars now because I'm doing something. So, yeah, I don't know where the money comes from.
Let's get to the next sentence. The global carbon reward should also be designed to incentivize ecological and social regeneration across the globe. The global carbon reward is the financial ammunition of the metaphorical silver gun. The financial... Sorry, stop doing that now. If I think Dalton is probably maybe listening to this, so... Sorry. The financial ammunition... the metaphorical
I just
bullets.
thought of something. I'm going to interrupt you because I thought it's like because I'm still trying to work out the funny. So I'm still a couple of sentences behind. But it's like, so okay, we mint a load of money off this carbon,
the gold standard, the carbon standard,
yeah, which will entropy. So therefore, we have to, in order to earn it, there's also a time pressure because you've got to earn it all before the carbon entropies. So it's like. Maybe there's a time incentive. It's like an urgency incentive in this as well. Though I don't know how.
Get your carbon credits now. Limited time only.
Exactly.
Get your service money now and use it to buy stuff that makes you feel good. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sort of pushing through out the hope that I will understand what's going on as I keep reading. The final, the metaphorical bullets will be offered to market actors everywhere to develop... Right. The bullets will be offered to market actors everywhere. I mean, that's a way of fucking saying something.
He needs some plain English people on his fucking blog post.
Well, no, and also in the talk as well, I was like, this is so much jargon, and I'm sure we can do this in plain English.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can explain this without... And that's why I kind of feel like it's a good opportunity to... kind of popularize something. It's just like, let's kind of like, I know you're in your sort of academia bubble, but the rest of us are just like, why? That like market actor, it's one of those things, I know those two words, but now I'm having to kind of like translate that into businesses or, people who've got some money to spend, or just anyone that acts within the market. And I'm sure it was hard to kind of come up with that wording to make it accurate and concise, which is the point of long, good words. But then it does just kind of like sometimes that's why it does take us 2 hours to unpick this into plain language. But we'll be offered to market actors, so it will be offered by someone to people everywhere to develop...
The central bank of new money...
Yeah. There's the gun.
Yeah.
We'll fire these metaphorical bullets at the actors. And these will be then used to develop local solutions to climate change, but within a framework of globally coordinated risk management.
I mean, why does it have to be this fancy new money? What's wrong with just money?
Because I don't know. And what is a local solution to climate change?
Well,
this is the whole problem with it. Like how it only really makes sense as a global solution, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, going back to that thing that I seem to know, but I don't know how I know, which is the carbon, like projects that deal with carbon, doesn't matter where they are. So for example, I've been looking about this in terms of Croatia. Like Croatia's quite clean energy-wise because it's got loads of sunshine, and naturally, like it's made sense for it to have clean sources of energy because they use a lot of hydropower, which you could argue there's river pollutant elements, but in terms of shoving carbon into the air with non-renewables is not what the emphasis is on. So they're, Oh, I don't know. I think I'm hungry now.
Well, and it's also like we're nearly at the end of the recording, so this is a two-parter already, and we've done like 3 paragraphs. But I did just kind of read it. So let's get to the end of this section of the blog post, which we will link, and you can have a read as well at your leisure. But it does say, why can't we just use normal money for this? Is the first question that may come to mind is this: how do we finance a global carbon reward without resorting to higher taxes and tighter fiscal policies? The answer is that no direct taxes or tightening of fiscal budgets is needed because a parallel currency can be used to fully finance the global carbon reward. So it's like, we're not going to use that money. We're going to use this other money and we're going to make it. So it's not going to affect taxes, but it's just this new thing that you can earn.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that it's like...
It still doesn't necessarily
answer it. It still doesn't really answer the question, because it's like, okay, so let's say my local island, I'm on an island in Croatia, and we've decided we're going to create a solar power thing that everyone can, like a cooperative solar station, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so
it's like, local...
That's our local climate thing.
Solution.
And we are going to have to buy some solar panels in order to do that. Had like the solar panel manufacturing company may want actual cash rather than magic beans.
Well, the assumption is here, I suppose, that the solar panel company will take this other currency as payment. Yeah. And that you've got these because we've kind of minted this currency for this purpose, and that the fact that they're in that ecosystem of exchange. I had this, like, to have a kind of local currency or a different currency that everyone buys into, you have to have a sort of gamut of professions who will accept that currency. But once you've got enough internal people exchanging with each other that can do different things, that it can be sustainable.
I mean, inadvertently, you are creating a tax benefit to this, because if the current taxation system exists to tax current money, as a business, if I'm dealing in magic beans or silver bullets, the current taxation system has no means of taxing me. Or do they?
Mm. No, well,
so is that a side benefit because I'm not, because
potentially
from the HMRC's point of view, one of the things that they find most frustrating is that sort of what they call the grey economy, where I help you with some user research, you write me some code, and we've exchanged value without exchanging money, and they can't tax that, so they already don't like that.
So
but does that matter?
I think. Yeah, it probably does. It's kind of going over my head a bit as I try and think about the kind of the way I'm going in my thinking on this is like who's taking this currency, who's using this currency, how many people? Is it like if you can just get people to shift, just to shift from some. So I suppose the idea is some stuff. It's almost like you want to spend this new one as much as you can. Yeah. So you want to do as much like, okay, I'm going to get my solar panels from these. I'm going to get my legal advice from this company that takes this currency because it's something good. There is a value judgment here at some point as to whether this is, meets the standards of protecting natural capital, and is socially or ecologically regenerative, but. Like if a law firm can take this currency, and if university, but certainly like, can I pay? Probably, I don't know if you can pay your rent in it unless it's a fancy tree house. I don't know. But then you it's almost like you want to use it as much as possible. But then there's some stuff like to buy your petrol, you kind of got to just use fiat currency. You got to use your normal money for that, so that's a bit annoying. But wherever you can, you'll try and spend this other currency, because then you don't have to spend your kind of dirty money. You don't have to spend your... And as he puts it, like, dirty growth. read a paragraph. Well, we've read one section of a blog post today, and that's taken us 2 hours.
I've read the introduction.
The introduction to something. So I guess, and also I'm going to talk to the guy that wrote this because he got back to my WhatsApp, so that's kind of awesome, and see if I think this is. If we think about this in terms of local currency, that might be a good way to
I think it
explain
might be a local model. Yeah.
And then just how do we police that the stuff is ecologically viable and beneficial?
And is that where he thinks, or that like the sort of the Bitcoin model comes in?
Yeah, so he does talk about the implementation being a cryptocurrency-based thing. So I need to kind of like listen to the whole thing
again,
and read it up a bit more, and especially if I'm going to talk to him now and actually maybe try and make something. Because I suggested that maybe I'd make a blank state video for it.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like the right sort of thing.
Yeah, it does.
And plus, I finally get to because I've been looking for I need to do an environmental one because I feel I don't want to be I don't want to be diverging from your stuff because I noticed that I haven't thought about any kind of equality-based stuff in my blank state thinking yet at all. But it sort of goes without saying that it's going to be illegal to pay women less for the same job, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hope so.
Just some of the stuff like we've said, it's sort of too obvious. Like that, I was thinking. I did have a little think about how you'd sort of create an ecosystem that made that happen, but that's for another day, listener. But I think next week we're probably going to have to dig back into this a bit deeper. But please do, if you can have a read of this and tweet at us and let us know what your thoughts are on it. Then next week we'll have a few. We'll read it. If we've completely missed the point on any of this, or if you kind of understand it a different way, just tweet at us, and we'll blank state. What's it? Sorry, at Podcast Gram. Just tweet at us or email us hello@grampodcast.com and help us untangle this. We'll see if we think it's viable. But either way, in the same way as what if your taxes were all transparent and you could see exactly where they went is a good thought experiment. I think if we can just kind of visualise this, because Delton obviously believes this is a viable idea and has put some thought into it, that it's certainly something worth discussing and getting people, and maybe it is a silver, not bullet, gun.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks so much. That was that was productive. If you like the podcast, go to grampodcast.com. You can email us hello@grampodcast.com. And where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
And you can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. Why would they want to do that? I don't know about this.
What would be really
all the
helpful?
Music. And I do all the music. And Ivanka was supposed to say how awesome it was every week, but she doesn't really care about doing that. So fine, whatever. I'll just kind of struggle along. To be honest, the music.com thing, I'm enjoying my YouTube productions, but I think I'm seeing music more as an element of a wider thing now. So blankstate.org is the next place. And what can people do, as you were about to say?
What would help us enormously would be if you listened, gave us some feedback, also did some reviews online. That would be lovely. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends mainly.
Yeah, tell your friends. Just say to your friends, we've been listening to this podcast. I think it's good, but I'm not really sure. They might be talking shit. What do you think? That kind of thing. And that's it, really.
And reviews on iTunes. I did look at the iTunes reviews last week, and I have to say, I don't really think there have been any recent. I think I had seen them all. And there's still that one there that says, it's really nice. Ivanka's so nice to listen to. Took me a while longer to warm up to Michael. And this is why I don't read reviews, because it's not good for my ego or self-esteem.
All about me.
Well, hey, they said that they didn't really like me to start with.
That's because they know me.
Was it? I don't know who that person was.
They are people who know me.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So, of course, they love listening to me.
All right, fine.
Or they sit there going, oh God, it's Ivanka doing an Ivanka again. God help us. That's what I live in fear of. People just go, oh God, she's at it again. But I don't live in fear of it. It's just like, then switch it off.
Anyway.
I mean, even podcasts I really love, I have a day where I'm like, I'm not today, Deborah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in a mood for you. So, no. And I still haven't got into your Team Human, dude. I started.
That's a shame.
I've had a go. So it's on back mood. If you're in the mood to listen to us, please listen to us a lot and tell people.
Yeah. When you're binging, binge away. Hashtag Team Human. Hashtag Guilty Feminist. Come and get one of our mugs.
Oh, mugs.
Get one of our lovely mugs. They're very nice.
Yes, they are.
No, my point being, just do have a look at the show notes, because we do. It is a thing I do every time, because I think it's important that we cite our references in order to be what's the word?
Not fake news.
Not fake news. It's the zeitgeisty way of putting it. We're sort of linking to where we come from, and you can you can draw your own conclusions about the things we're saying, can't you? Or like tell us if we missed the point. But also just like have a look, dig deeper, and then hopefully go to the get a mug, support us on Patreon. We haven't set it up, but it's going to be great. Anyway, thanks for listening, listener, and we'll see you next week for
more fun.
Silver gun hypothesis.
For more saving the world economic models.
Gun metaphors, holding it sideways. Bye.
Bye. What was that? Bye. That was me shooting myself.
Oh dear.
I'm tired.